so many people in my age bracket have a problem with discipline and doing kind of that hard work of, there's this idea that you need to set aside a certain amount of time in your day to meditate. It seems like meditation, contemplation is one of the singular paths to spiritual enrichment that is in all traditions. And frankly, that kind of life is just really difficult to do, and yet it seems essential. And then hearing you talk about it, your version of living spiritually is exactly where I would hope to end up. I too love choral music and engaging in that way and finding spiritual beauty there and writing. But in order to get there, obviously it feels like it takes work, it takes discipline. I wonder if you have any advice to folks like me struggling our way towards spiritual maturity.
I do. I don't believe in discipline at all. It's not been part of my life. I don't use the word. It has no meaning for me. In fact, the word discipline is in its earlier forms is like beating yourself. It's aggressive. So I don't want anything to do with discipline. I'm not a disciplined person. I've written over 30 books, but I haven't written those books because I'm disciplined. Believe me, that's not it. If I were using discipline, I probably would have written 2, not 30. I write out of pleasure. One of my great sources of inspiration is the Greek philosopher Epicurus, from which we get our word Epicurean. I consider myself, like so many of the people in history who have written about the soul, Epicurean. They were almost all Epicureans. They believe that the basis of a good life is deep pleasure, not superficial pleasure and not entertainments, not thrills, but deep pleasures. And the one that they give as the primary deep pleasure is friendship. So, that kind of pleasure, deep friends, eating well with friends, cooking, having a nice home that you take care of. Those kind of, for me, listening to music, those are the pleasures of life. And another pleasure I have is writing books. Writing is a great pleasure to me. I write because I find pleasure in it. When I finish writing a book, it takes me a few hours to get on to the next one. I can't wait to get into the next book because I have so much pleasure writing them. I love language. I love words. I love the etymology of words. I love studying words. I love putting them together. I love reading good writers. So all of that is all about pleasure. I'm inspired by reading good writers. I'm inspired by, when I write, I'll go to the piano and play a little bit of J.S. Bach. I'm a classical musician. And I see how he set himself some really challenging aesthetic problems and how he resolved them. And I learned from that with such beauty. And I go to my books and I try to write my book the way J.S. Bach wrote music. So that's how I work. That's what inspires me. I'm not inspired by any kind of demands on myself that I should write at a certain time in a certain way. I give myself a deadline. I'll divide a book up into chapters. I know how many pages I have to write for each chapter. I know when I'm finished with a chapter, it makes it easy for me.
Yeah.
It may be a kind of discipline, but it's really more about ordering in an aesthetic way. It's like writing music. I do the same thing in writing a piece of music. I give myself certain limitations and I fill those things out, and I've got a piece of music that holds together. Same with the book.
Yeah, that might be the best answer I've ever heard to that kind of question.